Howdy YouTube folks. Sorry, just adjusting the camera and then I need to get something off the lens. But it's your friendly neighborhood girl Ellen bringing you another video. If I can get that to stay. I'm gonna grab a drink here. Sorry, let me just adjust this camera because it seems to not want to stay in one spot. There we go. Anyways, I thought I would make this video because I'm finding it, and this is kind of a thing that bugs me a little bit and makes me kind of sad, is that like in my area of recent, granted they're not working currently, they're untested items, but I've been trying to go through them and get them working, some of my old appliances, and eventually get parts for them and get them working. But I wasn't asking that much for them in non-working condition, and sometimes people will buy those. But I'm finding it's really hard to sell vintage radios and appliances of certain stuff in my area. And it kind of makes me sad because I feel like a lot of people are losing, I feel like there's a lot of knowledge being lost with all these older tube radios being tossed out. But I've come to a surmisation that I think I might still do some for fun, but future going on, because I'm really trying to get into antique reselling and refurbishing these pieces. And what I was going to do was start an appliance business, was my thought, that I may not, and still be in the antique bracket realm, but more so to video games and maybe once in a while these radios, because I'm finding they're really hard to sell. And it saddens me because I feel like a lot of younger people who could appreciate these really old radios are not really appreciating them. And I feel like it's going to come to a point where a lot of these will end up in landfills because nobody can get rid of them. And I just don't get that. I think that there should be more younger people engaged in the hobby, especially like take a Zenith transoceanic radio from the 1950s. I mean, yes, is it really necessary nowadays to have a ham radio like that you can tune into all areas? But for the time, that was pretty cool. And I still think it's kind of cool. So when you look at antique radios, and I'm using them as an example of one item, it's like, sorry, I need to blow my nose. I hope I don't gross anybody out. I don't mean to, but sometimes I have to do it. But like, that's just a prime example of, in my area at least, and I'm sure it's different for other people, where it's really hard to move that stuff. And I just think it's sad because I feel like a lot of people are losing interest in these old radios and making them really hard to move, and old record players, because I'm currently working on a record player, trying to get it going. An old 45 Zenith. Zenith, I think it's a 432 model 432 I looked up. I'd have to look it up again. I think I've done videos on it on the channel. I just didn't have time to do it, and I was going to sell it as is, but I've since found some time to do it and some more instillment to do it, because I really want to get it working to see if I can sell it for more working, or, you know, at least sell it working. And it's not like I'm asking a lot of money for it. Untested, I was asking $35 or best offer. So, you know, I'm willing to take 30, 25, or whatever it takes to sell it, as long as I make back what I had into it, which is 15. I would be fine with that. I would really like to make at least $30 off of it. And I know there's plenty of meat there for someone to fix it and still make a little bit of money if they do it the cheap route, if they were going to resell it. But it just strikes me odd that I'm seeing this now. And I'm seeing a lot of, like, the ones that really bug me, though, are, like, a lot of really good quality radios that are put up for sale, that people have put up and have already gone through and serviced those radios, and they're asking like $300-400 for them, but they can't sell them, and I feel bad for them too, because like, take a good transoceanic radio. Back in the day, I believe those were going for like $400 or $500 on the internet, and now you can barely sell them. And I granted there's a recession now, but it's sad because I see all these like really heavy, the vintage console stereo record player and sometimes cassette or 8-track player from the 70s for sale that are like from the 70s, late 60s through to the 80s, those ones that would take up half of your living room space. And I see them for sale a lot now, and they're cool and all, but I'm seeing ones selling for like $200 that are in such horrible condition that is not worth, in my opinion, $200 to anyone, and I would not sell that to anyone for $200. And they're ones where like somebody found it in their family's old shed, and it's like pretty much falling apart, because if you know those, what I'm talking about, they were basically had cloth covered speakers, and it was basically like a formica type material, but once that gets wet or gets moisture or anything, as most of you who have done radios and record repair for years know, is it ruins them. And I saw one of those recently sell for $200, and I just don't understand it. The thing was a complete piece of junk. You could clearly tell it was rusted, all kinds of things. And then I see these ones where people are trying to sell them, and I think this one sold, but it was all stripped out. There was nothing left to it. So what good is that unit if it doesn't have the mechanicals? What are you going to do with it? I mean, yes, you could upcycle the cabinet, probably make a really cool piece of furniture if you wanted to, of what's left, but the thing is you'd have to find someone who really had a vision and an idea for it. And sadly, quite honestly, in my opinion, they were made in the 70s and 80s, and they're not really that appealing to a lot of people, let alone if they don't have the record player in it anymore, or the cassette player or anything. And I think, now that I remember correctly, this may have still had the radio in it, but that was it. The record player, the turntable had been stripped from it, which is most of the value of it. And here you are trying to get like $200-300 for it. I think they were asking like $300 for this one, and I don't know if they sold it. I think they did, but I'm shocked because, to be honest, I wouldn't pay $300 for something that's missing majority of the components, which makes it worthless. It just saddens me because it's getting really hard to sell old vintage appliances now, and the reason it saddens me is not because I wish I could sell them right off. It's the whole principle of, I feel like people of the younger generation, a lot of the younger generation wasn't instilled to appreciate these items, so now they're going to be lost to the landfills, like I said, in places like that. And I feel like eventually all these pieces of history will just be thrown out, and it'll be sad because, like, I've been hearing stories lately in my forums that I'm a part of, of like people finding these trash curb find radios and stuff, and they're like radios that at one time would go for good money on like eBay and stuff, all refurbished, and they're just thrown in the dumpster. They're all Bakelite radios, beautiful Bakelite radios too. It makes me want to cry inside, because I feel like that's a piece of history that's being lost. And granted, it would be nice to see people make the money, like I said, that they're looking to get for those items and not have to sit on them. But more so for me, it's more of the fact that again, like I said, that I feel like these items are being lost by the wayside, and a lot of younger people aren't seeing the appreciation in them anymore, and it's really makes me cry inside, because another example of what I can talk about in this video is I've seen this person selling on my local marketplace old radios, like old wood cabinet radios, really nice shelf ones that they pretty much gutted all the mechanicals, repainted them, upcycled them with designs, and put like kitchen cabinet knobs on them. And that even makes me even more sad, because it's like there's a perfectly good vintage radio, a perfectly good vintage Grundig radio from like say 1949, 1950ish era, 40s, 50s, and it's turned into like this weird looking thing with an oriental like Asian flower print on it and silver knobs. And I'm not downing the Asian style. I think Asian style is cool on things. I really like some of the 1960s mid-century modern oriental inspired furniture of the 60s. It's just like you're taking a beautiful radio and then turning it into this thing and saying that you did this because you're saving it from going in the trash, because you feel that if you didn't do what you did to this radio and strip it of everything and its dignity and turn it into this weird creation, just my opinion, that it would have been trashed and you would have never saved it. It would have never been saved. And it just, again, sorry about blowing my nose. It just makes me sad to see it. And I hope that maybe someday there'll be more younger kids that come in and start seeing the appreciation for the older stuff. Because I believe there is a lot of youth that's out there. I'm 32 years old and can appreciate a I think it was 1936, I looked it up, Delco radio that I have that I'm keeping for my own personal collection. That's one I'm fixing up to personally keep. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm 32 years old and can appreciate this old stuff. And it's sad, but I'm also realizing, I think, at a money-making standpoint, that I'm going to have to, I think I'm going to have to gravitate more towards older toys and video games to really make my business take off. And that's, I will admit, is one of the aspects that really saddens me, because I hate to see this stuff go by the wayside, but it's not going to stop me from working on it. It's just, if I work on any, they're going to be ones that I keep for my own personal, and I probably won't be gathering too many more older radios unless I know they're really valuable and I can sell them, because that's just the way it is, and that's how the money game works. But I just had to make this video because it makes me sad seeing that. And maybe videos like this will bring awareness and people could see old radios. Like, if you watch my YouTube and you see old radios, maybe that will bring, and you're a younger person, maybe that'll bring you an awareness to older radios and see how much fun of a hobby it could be. That could bring you into a profiting business. So that way you might be more apt to collect this and keep it alive. Because I think that in the end, for me, it's not so much the money, even though I would really like to make this a business that I can make some money at. Like I said, again, at the end, it's just me making sure these don't end up in the landfill. Because what a waste. Somebody created something 60 to 80 plus years ago, and you're just going to throw it in the landfill. Like it's nothing. Like it's a discarded nothingness. And on top of that, before I close this video, another thing I will say to that is, there's people who want to live a vintage lifestyle out there that are looking for period correct appliances to go in their places. So, you know, it's like, if somebody's trying to live like the 1950s, but you have, say, like a 1955 Philco radio of some kind, and you're just throwing it in the trash, there's one less radio out there that somebody of a vintage lifestyle living could have bought for their house. So, you know, that's just how I feel. It's just my opinion. And I felt like this video needed to be made because I hadn't made a video in a while. And before I close out this video, expect to see more updates on my radio stuff. But don't expect me to do a lot of radio repairs as frequent now with this, because like I said, for my business standpoint end of it, I just feel there's not really enough in there for that. That's kind of why I've been also phasing out of the garden tractors, even though garden tractors were more of a necessity. That's what led me to get out of the business of fixing garden tractors, because I really preferred working on the vintage stuff but a lot of the vintage stuff is aging and needs work, and because companies deplete would delete or make their parts obsolete, like Briggs and Stratton and stuff, it was making it so a lot of that older stuff wasn't worth keeping around, because if the engine needed to be rebuilt, but it possibly could have been feasible to rebuild it, by the time Briggs and Stratton was, for example, say was getting rid of some of their older stuff, which that's what they do, it's life. It was making it so at the time when I was fixing the stuff, it wasn't worth rebuilding it, because trying to find aftermarket new old stock stuff was getting expensive, because people who sold it knew that people needed that stuff, so they were putting their markups higher than what it would have sold if it came from the factory, which is understandable. Everybody's trying to make money, but see, that's a prime example of why I got out of the lawnmower. One of the reasons why I got out of the lawnmower repair business as a full-time business. It just, there wasn't any money. And that's also made me pretty sad too, to see that. But now I mainly just keep them around because I like to fix up ones I know I'll probably use. And there may be a few I will try to sell that I am making into race mowers. And those are usually get whatever you can. I try to get my money back out of them. And usually when you do stuff like that, you can. But, you know, I'm not looking at doing that as a business either. Obviously, because I don't have as much interest in it anymore. And 2, because of that reason. And 3, I did kind of get sick of working on clients' junk. I think that was the main reason why I stopped doing it, though, was working on clients' junky motors. Like, I had this one person who I had a few mowers, I think like a mower and a weed whacker, and I couldn't get it to, I didn't think it was feasible to fix it, and I could tell they were really aggravated because they were hoping I would be able to, but I told them it is what it is. And unless you want to pay $50 for a brand new carburetor, I'm not going to do it. Because this person wanted to barter with me, but usually when I would barter with this person was when, if I fixed something of theirs at the time when I was doing it, was and this is a cautionary right here to be careful of, was when I would bring in machines that I knew it might need a part that I didn't think would sell for too much, like a bracket, or I got the machine really cheap and I knew I could make my money back on other parts on it to do it. But when I had to physically go buy the parts, like a brand new carburetor for this weed whacker, and for those of you who've worked on small engines know that weed eater stuff is, ugh. Weed eater and Pool and Pro. Even the older Pool and Pro stuff, some people will say is better than the newer stuff, and it was at least of some quality back then, and I agree, but it wasn't by much. So, you know. But yeah, so as a cautionary tale, don't get into stuff like that. And I think that was the main reason why I stopped doing small engines anyways, was because of that. Just not wanting to have to fix people's old junk that they picked up on the side of the road or wherever, and expected me, with no full-on, for say, history of the mower, be able to just to drop my hat and promise that it's going to work. Because when you're trash picking stuff, you never know what the condition of the mower is if you're getting it for free. There could be a reason why it's on the side of the road. It could be spark plug, carburetor, it could be spark or fuel. But sometimes it's because whoever owned it didn't really maintenance it in the proper way they should have, and they ended up either blowing up the engine or using it until there was like no compression left in it. And sometimes you can get away with replacing a head gasket, which I would do anyways if you're doing what I'm about to say, and do a valve job and maybe free a stuck valve. But sometimes when the valves are stuck, if they're stuck open, things leak into the engine, and then boom, it's all over with water gets in there and it starts rusting up. And that was what I would find with certain things sometimes when I would get, especially from this person, and you hate to tell a client that their mower's not worth fixing up because there's just nothing salvageable about it, but it is what it is, and you have to, even if they're disgruntled about it a little bit, because, you know, no, I get it. They found it. They were hoping they could get it. They got it in a storage unit, knew nothing about it, was hoping it was going to be a very good unit. But, yeah. So, again, like I said, I think that was the main reason. That's also something I will tell you as a little tip. If you get into doing any kind of small engine repair, and if you do that now, you might as well just work on newer stuff and try to limit the amount of stuff, the amount of riding mowers and push mowers and rototillers that you bring in. And you could probably still do some vintage stuff if it's minor, but I would mainly stay to more like used and newer stuff if I was you, and limit what you bring in at your personal to fix for yourself to flip, and just mainly take on people who have mowers that want you to fix them for them, that need them, because I feel like that's where the service is really best nowadays from what I've observed. So as a tip, just, yeah, that's where you should focus. Even lawnmower salvage yards, because I had like a salvage yard as well at in my lawnmower business. I would fix some I would bring in, but a lot of them I would put in my salvage lot so I could take parts off for either another one or sell the parts off of it. And some of them I would buy and sometimes test them to see if they would work. But like, say if I bought one and the solenoid was bad in it, but I knew everything else was good that powered the engine in the wiring, I would oftentimes just not bother to fix that if I couldn't find the solenoid or just felt it would be better as parts than spending the money on it. Even though solenoids can be fairly cheap, you know, if I didn't think the mower was worth it, it would end up in my salvage yard. But also to remember that if you have a salvage yard for your lawnmower business, to make that your personal salvage yard, and don't, especially in this day and age, I've observed, and don't expect to like make tons of money on the salvage end either, because there is just like not really any money in it unless you can establish yourself for years and you have a collector-based clientele. If you're doing vintage salvage lawnmowers and you're like, say, almost having Tractor Graveyard in like the southern United States, I think is the name of the place. If you're an established salvage yard like that, then usually you can do okay. But if you're like starting out, it's just really hard, and I just recommend don't bother. Well, I think that's where I'm going to end this video, YouTube folks. I think that is a long enough rant. It just saddens me the way the gist of it is, the way all certain vintage stuff is just becoming not sought after anymore. And I get it, video games are cool. I've played them, but, you know, it's like, I feel sad because a lot of vintage stuff is just becoming not as, especially in local market. People just don't travel to the antique store much anymore. They buy online, and commercial online buying is killing, in my opinion, is killing the retail store market, making it harder for antique shops to stay open unless they're in populated areas like big cities and stuff, where you guarantee you're going to get at least a traffic of 1 to 3 people at a time during your day. Say like in the morning you get 10 people, you know. But that's different because it's in a commercial setting in a city. But if you're in a rural area, unless you're in a tight community, yeah, it's hard. And it saddens me to see a lot of vintage stuff that was once worth good money being not. But anyways, I will, again, catch you in the next video, YouTube folks. Have an excellent time, whatever it is, wherever you are. Keep your heads up. Stay strong, all that kind of jazz. Sorry I have not made a video in a while. I just haven't really been in the video making mood, but I felt this would be a good video. And if you wouldn't mind to comment, like, and subscribe, especially if you liked this video. And if you didn't, that's fine. I'd prefer you just didn't bother hitting the like button at all if you didn't. But if you feel you need to put a thumbs down, that's okay too. I'm not going to hold it against you, but I'd prefer that you didn't. And as always, like I said, comment within reason, constructive criticism of things you think I could do better in my videos and how I present them. I'm not a full-on, I feel, organized videographer, and I feel I lack a lot in that, but I do the best I can with my videos. Like I said, I've not tried to make them go to this mass amount of greatness, because that's not my goal. My goal is to just make videos for fun, and if I get a lot of viewers, so be it. But if I don't, I totally understand that. It's not the end of the world for me. And as always, like I say, you don't have to do any of that stuff, but if you would do all of that, including hit the subscribe button, I would really like it. You can hit full notification bell, or half, or no notification. That is totally fine. Whatever your preference is, no pressure here. I want this to be a pressure-free, safe zone where people can feel comfortable with the interactions of whoever they're interacting with in the comment section, or if they're interacting with me. I try to, and I also, before I close this as well, want to say I try to answer everyone's comments as quickly as possible. So if I don't get to your comment exactly right off, because it's possibly because I have not checked my YouTube yet, but I guarantee you, if I see your comment on my notifications, I'm going to make a point to reply back to you, because I really want to make sure that I'm replying back and engaging with all of my YouTube viewers, the YouTube neighborhood. Also, if you subscribe to my channel, I will definitely be, if a lot of you haven't noticed, I will definitely end up probably subscribing to your channels, because I try to subscribe to my viewers' channels so that way I can show them some love and get their channel views up like they would want. So just keep that in mind. If you subscribe to my channel, I am going to make a point to subscribe to your channel and try to view your channel in any way possible, because I really just want to see other YouTubers who are interested in making videos really succeed. And so that's why I try to do that. So just know that will happen. And know that there is a support system here on YouTube. And as always, sunshine, unicorns, and rainbows. And I will see you in the next video. And remember, we're all a support system, and that's what we should do on YouTube. Instead of disagreeing with each other all the time, try to be a support system and promote each other. And put all of our differences of how we disagree with each other aside, and just come together and be one unity of equal. And blessed be, in peace.